Welcome to the ESXi Hypervisor Installation Part 2. In this module, we'll demonstrate the installation of ESXi on our host and also the configuration of the management network and connection of our vSphere client to that. So let's get started with this. I would be deploying the ESXi on top of VMware Workstation as I mentioned previously. So let's just run through this really quick so that we could get our host up. So we'll just browse to our installer disk for ESXi here. Here it is. We just give this guy a name. Let's just call this ESXi 5. Okay. I'll accept the default location. Let's give this 4 cores. For memory, we'll stick with 4 gigs. We use NAT there for network type. Leave the default controller there. Okay, we create a new virtual disk. We'll assign 40 gigs of storage to this ESXi host, so we'll split that into multiple files. Leave the default there, and let's just power this up. Okay, so we could boot from the local disk or boot the installer here. So we have a couple seconds. It will auto select the installer. So we'll just let this take a couple minutes and extract out its file and start the installation. Okay, so whilst this is running, I wanted to show you guys the backend how I have my DNS server configured. I create the host records for these different hosts that would be in our infrastructure. So we could either use IP address to connect to the host, or we could resolve the host name. So let me just show you guys that really fast. Just a standard Windows DNS server here. Okay, so we'll go ahead and create a new record. Let's just create a new record for this new host that we're bringing up. Let's just give this ESXi. We'll in the direct console user interface, we'll give it the same host name. So let's call this ESXi 5. And we'll give it an IP address of 192.168. Let's give this 170. 171. Okay, great. So we have that listed down as 171. Okay, great. So let's just check back on our installer now. So here we just hit enter and continue this. We have we'll have to accept the end user license agreement here, F11, to accept that. It's scanning the available devices on this host, so just give it a few seconds. Okay, so this is what I was talking about. If we did select serial attached SCSI, that would have shown up under remote here and not as local storage. That's just how it is in the installer. So we'll go ahead and install to this 40 gigs partition that we created. We accept the default keyboard layout. So here we'll assign a root password. In production, you would definitely want to put a strong password here, something with uppercase, lowercase, character, special character, and some numbers. Okay, so we got that covered there. Hit enter. Okay, so we'll just scan a little bit and then it will start here. Okay, so whilst that is working there, I just want to show you guys one more thing. I want to show you how you access or how you get a copy of the vSphere client, the desktop client that you'll need to connect over to this. Recall we mentioned the desktop client is the one that connects directly to the ESXi host. The web client connects only to the vCenter server. So you cannot use the web client to connect to the actual host. Okay, so I'll just hit F11 here to start this installation and let that run. Okay, that'll take a couple minutes and then it will reboot. But in the meantime, let me show you what we were talking about with the vCenter, well, the vSphere client, sorry. So here we have it. This is the vCenter server ISO, or the vSphere 6 ISO. If we go into vSphere client, here it is. So this is a no-brainer. You just double click, install this, and bear in mind we did discuss this too before, that this only install on a Windows installation. So once we get this installed, we will connect over to our ESXi host. I'll show you another way once the host is up how we could get this installer. So this is just one way where you could get it. Or I could manually go out to VMware and download this too. So this is finished. Let's just reboot this. It's pretty easy, and this uses just a little bit of resources. You'll notice just around 100 gig, or just over 100 megs on your 100 megs of storage space. This would use the installer on your host. So this shouldn't take too long. Once we get this up and running, we'll connect over with our vSphere client. Let me just pull up the client in the meantime. Okay, so this is what the client looks like. We have the option either enter the DNS name or the IP address there, and then we would authenticate with our username, and which is root, and the password that we just created here. Okay, so once this is booted up and we see the IP address, by default it would pull a IP address from the DHCP, but I wanna just configure the management network with some settings that I needed to work in my environment here. So let me just do that really fast, and then we'll connect over to this host. So let me just hit F2. So F2 here would this is actually the DCUI that we've been talking about, the direct console user interface. So we'll authenticate to this with our password that we just created, root as the username. So I need to go to configure management network. We leave the DNS configuration for another module. For now, let's just deal with this IP address and gateway. So by default, it's pulling a IP address from my DHCP server. I need it to be static. So I use my up and down arrow to move across here. Or sorry, to move up and down, then use a space bar to select that. Okay, I think the IP address that we configure in DNS is 172.1. 172.1. We'll leave our default class C mask there, and for gateway, okay, that should be fine. Okay, just hit OK there, and just escape out on this. So we did make some changes on the management network, and we'll need to apply that change and restart the management network. So we'll just hit Y here. Good. So there we have it, 172.1. So let me bring back my vSphere client so we could connect to this. Okay, 171. Okay, great. So 171. root and then put in my password that I just created. This is our vSphere client connected to the host that we just deployed. So basic stuff. This is our memory utilization. This is our 40 gigs data store that we created. Here we have our 4 gigs memory there. So this is pretty much basic. What we'll do in the next module is we'll go through some more post-installation tasks like configuring our DNS proper and our NTP. I'll go through back the DCUI and we'll discuss a couple more of those settings that we saw in there. So let's just wrap this up here and then we'll continue there. Oh, before we move on, I should mention we'll discuss vSwitches and stuff like that later. But by default, once you do an installation, it creates the vSwitch 0 and our management network VM kernel port group there. Okay.